So bouncing around between different characters in Path of Exile 2, because what I'm really doing is waiting for the Templar, which could be a long way off yet. So my latest excursion was on the Monk. Now I think the toughest to play in the first few levels, really struggled with it, but then really took off after just doing literally the first zone. Absolutely blasted my way through the first 2 acts, no sweat at all, although partly this will be down to the fact that I am learning and getting better at the POE 2 style of gameplay, because I didn't play Path of Exile 1, which as I explained in my last video. So I had challenges early on, but then on my Monk, I got stuck partway through Act 3. I was getting absolutely battered by poison shots in the jungle, progression slowed right down to a snail's pace. Then I did a couple of things and we're cooking on gas again. So I thought I'd share what those 2 things were. So the first was Ascendancy. Now this is where you choose one of 2 subclasses to commit your character to. You can't change it once you've done it, but it gives you access to a pretty powerful secondary talent tree. You get the quest in Act 2, but I missed it on my Monk. So there I was about level 36, 37, still didn't have my Ascendancy. So I looked up why I didn't have the quest for it, because I'd gone through with the Ranger and I did get it on the Ranger, although I didn't get the Ascendancy because I messed it up, but I got the quest. And I found out it's because there's an area which I'd missed in an Act 2 zone, which I think is a bit of a failing in the game, if you ask me, because I think Ascendancy is obviously a core part of the game. So I think it should be baked into the main campaign. I don't think it should be possible to progress without at least getting the quest for it. Because if you didn't know anything, you weren't looking anything up, I would still not know Ascendancy is even a thing. But anyway, it's not baked into the main campaign. It's easily missed unless you explore every map in full or know about it. And I missed it. So deciding that a suitable Ascendancy would help me, I looked it up, went back. Now, there are a few things about PoE 2 I'm not that keen on. I'll discuss those in another video, I think. But for now, we'll say the lack of level scaling, which is common in most games I play these days. That is, you know, for me, a bugbear. But there is a silver lining, and it is that at level 37, the first trial of Secumus is very trivial. Blasted through it, got my Ascendancy, used the points in Evoker, which is like the damage option, but with the defensive points to boost my energy shield and, as it happens, Spirit. But there was still the problem that that helped my defensive abilities, but I still wasn't doing enough damage anymore. So I'd been used to freezing enemies pretty quickly, which is a brilliant way to stop them pummeling the crap out of you. But it wasn't happening so easily now. That is because, so I had this quarterstaff, which I'd been using since level 8. It was awesome at that level, but at level 37 wasn't quite doing the business. But it was also not easily replaced. Now, every level, there's a vendor in your main area in each act that sells weapons and other things. So you would think by level 37, even a basic like blue quality quarterstaff would be better than this level 8 rare, albeit with good stat. No, not at all. Nowhere near, in fact. So I'd been checking the vendor with each level. Nothing that in its current form would be better. And the problem with gearing in the game is it's hugely random. There's a massive random element in any game, of course, like Diablo 4, no exception, for example. But even in that game and those other games, you would still naturally place gear every few levels. Like, there's no way in Diablo 4 you are using something at level 37 that you had at level 8. But in Path of Exile 2, you need to randomize stats. You get a piece of gear, and there are orbs which you can use to upgrade its quality and give it bonuses. And the first couple of orbs needed are very plentiful, but the others are rare. You can boost supplies by getting percentage improvements to find rarer items on your gear and then junk them. But prioritizing that means there'll be times when you turn down gear that's got better damage or defensive stats in favor of the higher chance at finding rarer items. It's all a bit of a minefield of balancing priorities, really. But the point was, I was upgrading quarterstaffs, gambling my gold on the mystery item vendor, still not getting a staff that was better than the one I had at level 8. And even when you get such a staff, you need to be able to put in a couple of sockets and good damage runes, which are also random. Now, in theory, you can splash out the gold to buy items to get the sockets for salvaging. And for that little tip, keep going back to Act 1. The Act 1 vendor obviously is going to offer items which are cheaper, but salvaging ones with sockets gives you the same number of components, all right? So you just do that. But in the end, I did manage to get a new weapon that is better. It took me some time and quite a bit of gold. And combined with my first Ascendancy points, I'm now blasting through the mobs again, but it did take a lot of gambling on upgrades. Most of which, as with all gambling, turned up blank. So what I would say, and what I will certainly do, so when the Templar does become available and I level it, first thing, don't leave doing your Ascendancy too long. Now, I might be tempted to leave it as long as possible to make it easier. Because if you're not struggling with the content when you get the quest, I don't think there's any sense in trying it. I did that on my Ranger. I failed. And because you can't do it again without a random coin dropping, and, you know, since I worked out how the trials actually work, because learn about honour, by the way, I haven't had one of those coins drop on either my Monk or my Ranger, despite being well into Act 3 on both of them. You know, I think you need to work on the assumption that you'll get one shot at it. You might not, because you can get those random coins to have another go. But work on the assumption you're only guaranteed one go at it. So stack the odds in your favour. The longer you leave it, the easier it'll be. So wait until you're struggling. Don't do it when you're already... if you're already beating the content easily, why bother? Wait until you're struggling, then go back and do it. But when it comes to gear, I would constantly be on the lookout for better gear. Always check the vendors after you get a new level, because their stocks change. Go back to Act 1, buy cheap gear, which can be junked for the components needed to augment into rare gear and add sockets. So socketed gear, cheap rares. Save your rarer boosting orbs for gear that really looks like it's got the most potential, and probably especially for weapons. In fact, for me personally, one silver lining to the Templar not being available right now is I get to play different classes, make lots of mistakes, learn, and so I'll be much better placed to get it all right when I get my hands on the class that I really want to main. So after all this, by the way, I hope I'm not disappointed in the Templar when it does finally release. But in the meantime, that's what caused my latest little difficulty in Act 3. It was solved by just stopping and addressing a couple of weaknesses. Now I'm back on track, paying more attention to the quality of my gear in future, rather than leaving it until I hit a brick wall. So I hope you enjoyed watching the video. If you did, don't forget to give it a like. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.